and welcome to an episode of Masterpiece Theatre. The mic is just chilling next to me. It does me no good. No good whatsoever. Listen, we're doing a thing. That's some good shit. Hello friends! Welcome or welcome back. Welcome or welcome back. If you are new to my channel, I'm Elizabeth. This is Reading Riley. We're doing a special edition today. We're calling it, what am I calling it? Contemplation Corner. So today we're going to be discussing whether or not we think books make you more intelligent. But if you are new here, please take this opportunity to go right down below and hit that subscribe button and hit that bell, and it will inform you of my future content. This is meant to be a more relaxed type of video and just kind of incite discussion and thoughts and see how we feel about this question. Does reading make us smarter? I don't know. I don't really know. I want to say yes. But is that just me? What do you guys think? Let me know down below and let's talk it out. What do you say? Off the bat, this conversation has many different facets. And from what I've found, it's like you're going to the store, right? And you can take this alleyway or that alleyway, and there's all these different ways to find out, or to discuss this. So I'm gonna try to cover a couple of those, but I'm by no means gonna cover all there is to know about this subject, but I just found it intriguing and fascinating. Anyway, so in order to have this discussion, I thought we should start out by defining intelligence. According to the authorities on this subject, there are 3 different kinds of intelligence. So I'll start by saying the first one is crystallized intelligence. So crystallized intelligence is like riding a bike, like learning the name of a new friend. It's intelligence that is useful knowledge to you, and it forms your ability to navigate through the world. So it's kind of like things that are just basics that you remember, right? So secondly, we have fluid intelligence. Fluid intelligence is basically like street smarts. It's observation, it is reading between the lines, the ability to read people, if you will, and solve problems and understand things and detect meaningful patterns. It's been kind of discussed that if reading can increase your fluid intelligence, then therefore the converse must also be true, that fluid intelligence can increase your reading comprehension. So that's kind of a gray area. And then the third type of intelligence is emotional intelligence, which has been popularized and more well known as of late. But basically, it's the ability to accurately respond to yours or someone else's feelings. So you have these 3 different definitions of intelligence. So, does reading make you smarter? I think there are certain ways that it does. Obviously, if you're only reading nonfiction, if you're only reading textbooks, and you're just, taking in information and memorizing, if you're in med school or something like that, then yeah, clearly it's going to make you smarter. So we're talking about fiction. So does reading fiction make you smarter? People will say, well, why don't you just watch a movie? It's the same thing. You're still consuming a story. Basically, you're consuming a story. And especially when I read with audiobooks, when I ear read, people say, well, you're not even reading. I'm consuming the story just in a different way. But here's the difference. When it's a book, whether it be audiobook or physical book or Kindle or anything, you're using your imagination to tell this story. You have to, at least for me, I have pictures in my mind the whole time. I have how I perceive these characters to look, and based on the writing of the author, I navigate through worlds in my mind. And I think that has to, at the very least, exercise your brain more than watching a movie. And not only that, but since we're on the subject, between watching movies and reading books, most movies are telling a story from the outside looking in. And the thing I love about books is that they tell stories from the inside looking out. From a book, you don't just see what the characters are doing, you feel what they feel, you hear what they think, you understand them on a deeper level. So I have to think with complete humbleness and vulnerability, I have to say that I just have to believe that reading does make you smarter. I found a study. This was made by David Comer Kidd and Emmanuel Castano. They claim that reading literary fiction, specifically literary fiction, increases your theory of mind, is what they call it. So this theory of mind, it's your ability to understand other people's mental states, aka empathy. So let's talk about this research a little bit, because I found it very interesting and I didn't necessarily agree with them. But they did the study, so who am I to say? But listen. So we have David Comer Kidd, we have Emmanuel Castano, New York School for Social Research, and so they have 1,000 participants. They're randomly assigned texts to read, and either it's going to be popular fiction or literary fiction. So the books that they used for popular fiction was a Danielle Steele book, The Sins of the Mother, Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. And then they used other literary texts, such as The Tiger's Wife by Taya Obrecht. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. And Don DeLillo's The Runner, which, from what I understand, is a short story inside an anthology called The Angel Esmeralda. They gave them either the popular fiction or the literary fiction books, and then they tested them. They used a combination of 4 different theory of mind tests. So the first one was reading the mind in the eyes, and they called it RMET, reading the mind in the eyes. The second one was the Diagnostic Analysis of Nonverbal Accuracy Test, DANV. And then they had the Positive Affect, Negative Affect Scale, and the Yoni test. Up here of an example that I found. And it's basically a person's eyes and an expression, and it's, you have to gauge how, if you think that expression is anger, if you think it's sadness, rage, or happiness, or what have you. Based on these parameters, they found that only the people that read the literary fiction caused an impact on their empathy. Who's to say that it's not the difference between literary fiction and genre fiction, but simply the difference between those specific books that they chose? I mean, I've never read that Danielle Steele book. I actually haven't even read Gone Girl. I guess I've seen the movie, and I haven't read the literary fiction that they chose either. But you're basing it off of these specific books, not just the genre in general. And on top of that, I just feel like calling something literary fiction in general is kind of pretentious and is kind of just for academia and is not inclusive in any way. So it irks me a little bit, because I love reading so much and I get so enthralled in these stories and so connected to these characters. I can't fathom that even if you're just being taken for a ride, even if you're just along for the journey and you don't have to, quote unquote, fill in the gaps for yourself, I just feel like I do learn empathy from that. So here's the question I want to pose is, who the hell gets to decide what is literary fiction and what is not? Okay, let's talk about this. What is literary fiction? According to these scientists, some writing is what you call writerly. And that would be what they're referring to as literary fiction. And in writerly fiction, you as the reader, according to them, have to fill in the gaps and participate in the story. So I guess it's written in a way that is not obvious, that you have to think more about. And then some writing is readerly, and that is for pure entertainment. It says they tend to see more readerly writing in genre fiction like adventure, romance, thrillers, things of that nature, where the author dictates your experience as a reader. And then literary fiction lets you go into a new environment and you have to, quote unquote, find your own way. This is what one of the authors of this study has said. Fiction is not just a simulator of social experience, it is a social experience. First of all, not all psychologists agree with Kidd and Castano's use of the theory of mind techniques. So this is not an end-all, be-all experiment, but it is interesting. They only had a set number of books that people read, right? I personally think it's interesting because I don't typically read literary fiction, but I feel like I gain empathy from these books that I read. It's not fair to put genre fiction in a corner. No one puts genre fiction in a corner. Genre fiction needs to go dance and do the goddamn lift. But anyway, maybe I should make my own study. And we'll do several more books. And books that I know are good. I think there's a lot of genre fiction that can bring you just as much connection to the characters, that can make your mind explore thoughts and explore themes in just as good of a way as literary fiction can. So, and I don't see how in any way, shape, or form that can ever not be subjective. It's subjective. So, that being said, that's my opinion. If you guys are still with me, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Thank you for having this one-sided discussion with me about how reading does or does not make you smarter. If you're still here, please go ahead down below and subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget, life is short, so read Riley.